Today on Rage FX Radio, me and Rin take a somewhat deep dive into Tarkov and got to really express how we feel about the game. And right before we start, I want to read you the description on what Tarkov really is, like the actual description that you find on Google. So, Escape from Tarkov is a story-based experience that challenges all comers to escape the city with their lives. Matches are session-based and inhabited not only by human players, AI-driven scavs to fill the world, ensuring a constant air of danger. Players can join the conflict on their own or with a squad of friends, as multiplayer is at once both cooperative and competitive. Any loot you find in a session, you get to keep, provided you make it to one of the extraction zones alive. However, if you find yourself on the losing end of a gun battle, you lose everything found and everything you brought with you. Now, if that don't get you ready for an amazing conversation, I don't know. I don't think you're ready for it. Here comes Escape from Tarkov with me and Rin. One thing that I'll say right off the bat is that with Tarkov is a special game because when you think about like your generic Call of Duty player that plays a game, and especially compared to something like Tarkov, it's a lot different. So for anybody that's never played Tarkov or doesn't know what Tarkov is, it is very, very in depth compared to like a Call of Duty game or Battlefield or anything that's like your generic multiplayer game. I'm trying to think about games that would be something that you can compare to Tarkov, but I feel like it's the like one of a kind game. I don't know if you had any games that like compare to Tarkov sticking out in your brain. I don't.
For Tarkov, it's a very intuitive game, being that the mechanics are very designed well. It's very intricate, very complex. Given that your typical Call of Duty games, which is your basic running gun shooters, whatever mechanics or techniques you learn in that game, it won't transition over to Tarkov. Tarkov is an intuitive game that raises the bound of being more of a tactical sim.
Yeah,
For example,
you
Arma.
know, you
Arma
know what? Using the
3.
word tactical sim is a good one because I think people need to realize that it's more of a simulation than a game because it's really realistic.
For Arma 3, it's a very tactical sim, but there's a bit of arcade aspect, just to make the game more enjoyable for people. But with Tarkov, I would say it's a very love and hate relationship with it, given the aspects and all, we'll probably say, complex techniques you have to learn.
Yeah, because I
Like,
mean, like in general, like, and I mean, we can kind of get into this a little later, but just the other day we were playing because I mean, wipe just happened as of the recording, what, 3 days ago, something like that. And that's another thing. Tarkov, if you don't know it, they do this thing I think it's every half of a year. Like they do a wipe twice a year, I think it is. When you do wipe, you lose everything. Like you're starting from scratch. You start from level one again. You start over. You grind your gear. You have to find loot and like we'll get into that a little bit. But yeah, they do this thing called a wipe, basically starting you over from level one. Everybody starts over from level one. They reset the servers and you start over. We hadn't played in a while, and when I loaded in, they take things really to the, like, I keep using the word realistic, but it is. It's like Rin said, it's a very tactical simulation. It's very, very realistic on a lot of things, and weapon durability is one of the biggest things. And while getting into a firefight the other night, which was with an AI, so AI being, what would be the word I was using? It basically a bot. The bot was shooting at me. I shot back. My gun jammed. In order for me to even look at the gun jam, I needed to do Shift L to
Shift L.
inspect my gun. And then I had to do Alt T to eject the shell that was jammed in my gun. So that's one step to do one simple removal of a gun shell that got jammed after the round got fired off. That is
The aspect of that
one
is
thing.
like,
Like, you got to think, you were trying to get me to set up a keybind the other day, and it was like scrolling, and I'm sure almost every key on your keyboard is used for this game because there's also like control combinations, shift combinations, alt combinations. You can do fucking, left click, right click at the same time would do like something stupid. Like, like you can do just about anything with your keyboard on this game because there's just so much stuff you need to keep in mind. Like zooms being different lengths, changing from single fire to burst fire to fully auto, again, ejecting a shell, inspecting your gun, checking your magazine to see how many bullets you have left, reloading your magazine, quick reloading your magazine. Like a quick reload is you quick R twice real quick, it ejects your mag. You don't even get the mag back. It drops it on the ground. You can go back and get it, but it drops it on the ground. It's called a quick release, or not a quick release. It's called a quick reload, which I don't think I've ever heard of another game doing a quick reload because usually you lose the magazine anyways when you reload. So it's kind of, and again, coming back around to it, it's a very big on the simulation aspect. But one of the things that I know that really it's a back and forth with me, like you said, it's a love hate relationship almost with Tarkov. It's the play style. It's roguelite. For people that don't know what roguelite is, basically you die in the server that you're playing on at that time, you lose everything. Everything that's on your your guns, the loot you found, the equipment, your gear, everything gone. You lose it. Unless you've done something that's called insuring. You can insure the stuff for money, in-game currency that you accumulate by selling stuff in-game. You can insure the weapons and the gear, but if somebody picks it up and extracts with it, you lose it. So you lose the money and you lose the gun or the equipment that they took. So what is it about the playstyle for you that you love the most and you hate the most? Because for me, I'll give mine right quick because I'm going to be very simple with my answer about it. The love aspect is just being able to enjoy it, but also like the looting. I love the looting aspect of the game. It's really good. The way they do everything, the way they just, there's certain items in certain spots and you got quests for certain items and stuff. And the hate aspect for me would be the roguelite. I'm not a huge fan on roguelite games. I'm getting used to it. I'm enjoying it a little more this season, but those are like my two like love and hate situations for the game. I feel like you have a totally different aspect on that than I do. So if you want to talk about like your love and hates of the play style or like in general of the game, you can go ahead with that.
but given that I grew up playing Counter-Strike Global Offensive back in 2013, back in my high school days, that tactical aspect, kind of arcade style, growing up, probably playing that over 1,000 hours into 2015, then moving on to another game that has a similar tactical pace to it or tactical format, which is Rainbow Six Siege. Rainbow Six Siege is basically another tactical FPS game that's similar in its own aspect, of course,
Yeah,
but
in its
it's
own
more
way.
just
Yeah.
it's just more the arcade side of things, and
Yep.
then the mid ground of military tactical sim or police force tactical sim would be, I would say, given that mechanics that Tarkov has, a middle ground, Arma 3, Arma 2, and then Insurgency, which is another good game to play
Which
that
we've
has a
played in
mid
the
ground.
past, right? We played
We
Insurgency.
played the first one, the
Yeah.
first Insurgency. Insurgency Sandstorm was a sequel that they made that I would just say it's improvement on the first generation of its
Gotcha.
installment. But in respect, the controls in that are just as complex as Tarkov. I mean, there's the quick tactical reload that of course, you drop your mag, but you don't have to worry about putting that mag back into your pouch. You just put in a fresh new mag and just get ready to shoot again. That any target that's coming at you, which is what most games don't really do. Of course, in like Call of Duty, you reload, you get that same mag put back in your pouch, but it adds to the same ammo pool that you have. So you're always putting a fresh mag in. There's no like half empty mags in your pouch. There's no quarter mags in your pouch or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Everything's all put back in, repacked. That's where the major divide between tactical sim is the authenticity into realism, which Tarkov really does provide, given that the ballistics in the game is basically 1-to-1. Armor, chest rigs, they're basically 1-to-1.
And it's so accurate. Like I've watched videos on like real life shooting of the guns that are the same spec in Tarkov, and they're dang near perfect. Like they've done such a job on just mimicking the like, grenade blasts, how a bullet ricochets, the just in general what can penetrate and what can't. Like just like you're saying, like that realism factor that they added to that game is just a whole nother level, which I think now that I'm thinking about it, that's another thing that I really do enjoy over, like you're saying, Call of Duty, where again, reloading, it's just always a fresh mag. It's like as if you have unlimited fresh mags, but the ammo never goes away because you're just adding to that ammo pool. Whereas if I shoot my MP5 and I shoot it and I reload it and I shoot it again and I reload and I put that other mag back in, it's not a full mag anymore. If I shot 10 bullets out of a 20 round mag, there's only 10 bullets left. And I think that's like the coolest thing, especially for someone like me. Like you said, you played Insurgency, you played Arma, which does Arma have the quick tactical reload too, or was it Insurgency that they introduced that to?
It was, as far as all tactical FPS games I played, Insurgency was probably the mid ground game that actually had the quick tactical reload.
Okay.
Armor wise, it was just a generic reload like Call of Duty, of course, but Armor 3, they still had the resource capabilities of like Tarkov has. Like what I mean by that is that you still retain that same magazine, so that has the missing ammunition in the magazine
Okay.
itself. So in retrospect, there is some realism to it, but not complete realism.
It's almost like an in between of arcade and realism in a way.
Yeah,
It's like
that's why
it's like
that,
Insurgency meets Call of Duty, like in an open, because Arma 3's open world, if I'm not mistaken, it's like there's tanks and shit everywhere.
so Armor 3 is more of like it's which you what most would consider as the tactical sim sandbox in retrospect,
Okay.
because you can make, I mean, of course there is a bit of a small little campaign, to get you going, but the real aspect of Arma is the multiplayer. It's like Battlefield on steroids, given how realistic with multi mechanics is. Like
Okay.
you can have army battalion, you can have the air force in there at a strong point. I mean, you can have a full out ground warfare if you wanted to, if you have the right amount of people. Given that you can have more than 100 players on the server.
Thank God there's not 100 players on one server in Tarkov. I go crazy. I
Thankfully,
feel,
because I
oh
mean,
God.
given that how much basically the limitation about most of these games is the amount of scripting the engine can handle.
Yeah.
Because Tarkov, every little thing is scripted to be the way it is. From you walking, from you taking a bullet to the leg, broken limbs, and then possibly the biggest thing is, the health system that's been built in Tarkov completely outblows most other games, given that arcade made it more simple. Yes, you get shot, but you can heal quickly. Take
Or the
cover.
generic, oh no, I got shot in the chest. Let me wrap my arm.
Yes, like
Oh,
the healing system, it's very intricate. It's very well designed, in
yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Oh, yeah. I agree with you there. It is.
the other time I ever seen healing was probably Far Cry, given that you could just, you know, heal a little bit of health by fixing a broken arm or taking a nail out of your knee. I
Hmm.
mean, you get,
But wasn't that more of a like a for Far Cry? Just kind of, I know we're getting a tiny bit off topic with it, but isn't Far Cry, wasn't that just random animations, or was it like if you did like step on a trap, you took out something from your foot kind of thing?
there was some aspects to it, like some of the injury you sustained was actually like sustained by specific things, like
Okay.
say you get shrapnel in your arm, yeah, you're gonna have to pull it out
Okay.
and heal.
Okay. So it wasn't just
That
some
was
random
something.
ass animation. It was like usually it was towards that. like
Yeah,
type of damage that you received. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So that was one of the gimmicks that Far Cry had for themselves. So people can't really take that.
Hmm.
But I mean, of course, with Tarkov, the fact that the healing that happened, it's very modern day,
Yeah.
very like authentic. Like you take a shot, 9 millimeter caliber bullet into your arm. Of course, in the middle of a combat situation, you don't have time to like surgically remove it. So all you can do is most likely is bandage it and put yourself some morphine, which a lot of the animation does, is like the AI2, which is basically a morphine and a sedative canister,
Yeah.
which is cheese, what most people like to call it. And of course, all the other stuff like, you know, the Soelas, IFACs, all these little pouches has medical supplies in it. Even though they look generic, I mean, these are designed to be specific design first aid kits, really.
Yeah, and
That
each one does different things. Like Grizzly, which is the biggest one you can get, can do basically everything. It can stop heavy bleeding, light bleeding, and just a bunch of other stuff. If you have a fracture, you need to use a splint or an I don't know the actual name, but I call it the ALU splint, which is like a 5 usage splint.
the aluminum splint, yeah.
Yeah, and then if you get shot and have, like, sometimes you can get shot and have tremors or hurt yourself in a certain way and have tremors in your head, you need to take some form of pills to remove the tremors. Like, it's not just like, oh, let me just heal. Like, it doesn't work that way. And if you have a Suela and your Suela has been used too much, it won't stop that. I don't know if a Suela does heavy bleeding too, but just for generic purposes, like, let's say my Suela is down to 10% usage left, which realistically it would be, because it's a 400 count for Suelas. Let's say my Suela is 80 out of 400. It's not going to probably do a light bleed hit fix. It's just going to heal me. But the light bleeding is still there, so I'm going to lose HP in that arm. Like the arm, like if it's the left arm and the left arm has light bleeding and I don't treat the light bleeding, I'm going to bleed out. Like, you will bleed out because once your arm is blacked out, which that's a thing too. If your arm is blacked out, you need to use a surgical kit to bring it back, and then you have to heal it after it's brought back. If there's a light bleeding in your arm while you're doing that surgical to bring your arm back and you don't stop the light bleeding, it'll black out again. And each time your arm blacks out, there's less health that can be put in that arm. So, like the other day, my arm was at 8 HP, which is not a lot. It blacked out twice because I did that same situation. I CMS'd my arm, and then I went to heal it, but I didn't heal it quick enough and it blacked out on me. But luckily, because I did that, it stopped the light bleeding. Then I had to CMS it again, and then I needed to heal it again in order to even get it functioning. The downfall to having a blacked out arm would be your aim is not going to be there. Your aim stability is not going to be great. You're not going to be able to control recoil. Like, everything has its step. Everything is coded and scripted so well. Like Rin's saying, it's to a point that you couldn't get more realistic without it being real in some aspects. Like, there's a lot of it, yes, like, I mean, no matter what, if you got shot in the arm, it's gonna fucking hurt. You're not gonna be able to withstand recoil on a gun as good. You're gonna do your best, especially in a tight situation. Adrenaline's gonna be pumping and shit like that. But like, just in general, like when you go to inject a morphine, like he was saying, you literally pop the morphine and you inject yourself with the morphine. You go to heal yourself with a Suela, he pops the clip off the Suela and unzips it and pulls the stuff out and injects himself and then zips it back up, clips it together and puts it in it. Like, it's the little details in that aspect, I think, that really make the game an immersion factor. It has a really good immersion factor to it. And then again, being so realistic is just insane. And I think that's what makes me keep going back to it. But then I get frustrated because once it gets far into wipe, people have really good gear because they know what they're doing. And I think, like, I'm sure you'll get into this a little more. The other big detail with Tarkov is the weapons.
Oh yes, the weapon
Oh my god.
smithing. It's very, very intricate. Like, you would have to know basically every aspect of a firearm, or the components of a firearm to be exact, to know what kind of weapon you could build, to what it's capable of.
Luckily, they do
The
help you in a little bit. It's not realistic to the point that you need to know this stuff. But yes, you do need to know a decent amount to be able to get a good functioning gun with good recoil, like reduction and shit like that. You kind of got to have some aspects of knowing weapons.
well, the thing is the fact that you have to take this game with a grain of salt, regardless of who plays it and how they play it.
Yeah.
You're There's a steep learning curve, given that all the mechanics for a weapon alone is greatly in depth. Like, you can make a real life weapon if you that you could have in your house if you wanted to. But it's the fact that, building it in game takes a little bit more effort, given that you can't just go out and buy all these parts and come back. It's the fact that most of the stuff has an in-game currency and everything like you have in real life.
There's also the fact that like if you're looking to build a specific gun, until you're like level 15, which does take a little bit to get to. I know it sounds like a low number, but it does take you a little while to get to. If you want to build a specific gun, you either need to get the black market unlocked, which is level 15, or be lucky enough to find it on a person that you kill or got killed and the weapon got left behind with the parts on it. Hold the fort. Editor rage here. Looking back at everything, I realized that I forgot to do one important thing. So I'm just taking over right quick. I promise it'll be quick. I just want to let you guys know that the podcast is 100% sponsored by Podcast Bay Productions. Podcast Bay Productions has given me the opportunity to do something that I haven't really been able to do in a long time. So basically, if you're looking to start a podcast, you already have a podcast, or you're just looking for some knowledge based on podcast information and stuff like that, please do reach out to them. Their link will be in the show notes. Podcast Band, their team is amazing. They've helped me launch this show. They've helped me produce this show. They've helped me do everything that I need to ensure that it's a successful launch, and everything that's going on in the show is ran through them. So if you like what you're listening to, you like the quality, you like the information being spoken about, how it runs, please do reach out to Podcast Bay. They are the best source for your podcasting needs. I seriously mean that when I talk about it. That's not just because I work for them. That's just my professional opinion. All right. And back to the regular recording. Other than that, you're basically running around with scav guns, which are the AIs, and guns that you've scrapped together from other gun parts that might not have a good durability, that's going to jam on you, and so on and so forth.
I mean, at this point, most people start with makeshift weapons that are just put together briskly. Of course, they're not going to be efficient, but they're going to get the job done for the most part because the lethality factor with all these weapons is very high.
Yeah.
The time to kill in these games is a very quick. Like, the fact that
Well, it can be. It can be a shootout and a half, but especially if you're healing in between. But yeah, like if you hit a headshot, you're dead.
yeah,
Like
you're not
there's
coming
no
back from
like,
that. You're
oh,
not walking away from that.
I took 2 shots to the head and 1 to the knee and I'm still walking. No, you're dead. It doesn't work that way.
That's the thing that's what's great about it is because you know these guns are lethal. You know you can get a kill off of these. Of course, the more experienced players, they have the higher tendency to have a higher survival rate, given that they have a longer experience, a large amount of exposure time to these kind of environments. So they're more knowledgeable. They'll not run in like some Call of Duty person and just run and gun. Of course, this game really puts you into a more slower paced position. Like,
Yeah, it does.
given that most tactical sims or tactical FPS, you can be as tactical as you want, but in retrospect, there's always the aspect of running and gunning.
Yeah.
No, this Escape from Tarkov turns the tables on this completely. The whole table's been flipped. So in the end, it's a very unforgiving game. It's ruthless to you.
There was a saying that we used I think, well, people still use it, and it's funny because when you think about it, it's so true. What Tarkov gives, Tarkov takes. The game is, like he said, so unforgiving. It doesn't give a shit if you're a level 30. If you like, this game is just like, again, we keep coming back to the same term. It's realistic. It's a simulation. It like the darkness. You want to go out in the dark, you need night vision goggles, or else you're walking in pitch black. You go into a room, the lighting is different. You can, when you throw a grenade, guess what? You don't have a crosshair telling you where your grenade's gonna throw. You know how many times I've thrown a grenade into a door and it's bounced back at me? Yeah, you run like a bitch because that thing's gonna kill you. It's not gonna hurt you. A grenade at close range is going to kill you if you're not wearing the right armor. Like, it's just everything about that. And again, when you come down to, like he's saying, with the experienced players, one, their guns are usually kitted out because they know how they want their guns to run. They know how they want each weapon they use to have the recoil. They know what they need to do to it, to be able to do that. But secondly, you're not going to end up in a situation where I'm level 5, he's level 20, he's got a level 4 helmet, a full body vest on, like kitted out, and I'm over here with like simple SMG and no armor and a cheap ass level 1 helmet. The chances of my survival rate is slim to none. Chances of his is a lot higher. Does that mean I can't kill him? No. If I get that tactical advantage where, I get that aim on his head, or I get more shots off and I hit him with those shots, he doesn't get away, he's dead. It's as realistic as you can get it, and it is a slower paced game to some perspective, I think, because with Tarkov, it's raids. So you spawn in, you have, depending on the map, 25 to 45 minutes, depending on if you spawn in as a player or a scav. If you spawn in as a scav, which is something that I'll briefly talk about with scavs. With scavs, you load in with a preset person. You don't know what he has on him. You can see the gun he has in his hand. You can see the gear he has on, but you can't see the durability of the weapon. You can't see what he has in his backpack. You can't see anything. So you'll load into a map, spawn in. Scavs spawn in, what is it, like just over half? Like, it's like, if the raid is 30 minutes, it's like 16 minutes and left and further, the scavs will start spawning in.
Roughly about half of a session, most
Yeah.
players gas spawn in.
So you'll spawn in as a scav, and then you got to try and survive, get out. If you shoot another scav, because scavs won't shoot you until shot upon, usually, you get negative scav karma, which means the next time you run into a scav, they're now going to shoot at you. So there's even more aspect to that game. You don't want to shoot the scavs. The scavs are loot. Your player scav load-ins are your loot games. Those are the games that if you're hard for gear, you load up as a scav, you loot a little bit, you try to avoid the players that are left in the raid, and you get out. Try and get that gear. It might not be the best gear, but it's going to get you through the next raid, so on and so forth. You wait, depending on your scav karma, anywhere from, I think it's 15 minutes or more for your next scav to load in, and so on and so forth. With scavs, or with players, you're loading in at any point in the raid, usually within the first like 10 minutes of the raid. But you have other players, they'll shoot at you. Scavs, they'll shoot at you. Everybody is out to kill you. So not only do you have to try and loot things, you have to survive, then you have to extract. So if you spawn on one side of the map, most likely your extract's on the other side of the map. So you have no choice but to traverse the map in order to get out, which means I've ran raids and not ran into a single person, but that's hard. I feel like that's really hard. That makes the game more of like, in my opinion, it's a medium paced, because in firefight scenarios, yes, you're a little bit slower pace unless you really trust yourself to get the kill and you're good at that fast pace because you're used to the game. Sure. But for me, I'm a bit of a slower pace. I like to kind of weed out the enemy before I start shooting in random places, especially since I usually play with people and you can kill your teammates. So that's not fun. That's happened too many times to count. And it's not fun because, again, it's roguelite. they lose that stuff. It doesn't matter if you kill them or not. You don't know that it's them. There's no, and again, imagining that there's people that are listening to this that don't have or have never played Tarkov or have never watched it before. There's no little arrow that says that's a teammate. There's nothing. It's hardcore. It's like hardcore. There's no significant detail that states that that is your buddy, because you can technically buddy with anybody if you really wanted to. And if you shoot them and you kill them, they're dead. They lose their shit. Like, there's nothing you can do about that. There's nothing they can do about that. The communication is a huge thing on that game too. And I think that's the one thing that frustrates me the most, is when communication isn't consistent. And I know I'm kind of jumping a little bit all over the place, but in general, I think that's one of the biggest struggles with the game. I feel like people don't understand the communication aspect of it, because people will get into it and go, oh yeah, I'm just going to run over here and I'm going to shoot this guy. What if I decided to rotate? Now I'm beside that enemy that you're going to shoot and you don't know who's who. If you just shoot at one without asking, you're probably going to kill your teammate. Like, there's a 50-50 probability that you're going to kill your teammate. Other night, playing it, load in, we hear someone and another buddy, Mando. We go to the side. It's a tanker. He goes to the right side. I go to the left side because I didn't want to be behind him in case I needed to shoot too. Or the guy shot at us and kills us both with 2 bullets, chances of that. So I went left. He came around the canister, saw me, shot me, didn't ask any questions, because his instincts kicked in. But if you would have asked, hey, Rage, where did you go? I would have went left side of canister. That's me. We would have been able to survive and push that guy and kill him. But situations happen. I didn't say I was going to the left side. He didn't ask me where I went. He didn't think twice about asking. He just shot at me. And I don't know if you feel the same way with the communication thing. I'm sure you do, because that's the one thing that I find you do the best at. Like, I find there's certain people, if we're playing with specific people, our communication is good. But if you don't know who you're playing with, communication is garbage all the time.
Oh, yeah, communication is very paramount in a game like this. I mean, especially if you're running with a friend or a decent sized group, 3, 4 people. It's very intuitive to constantly communicate your position, your whereabouts, you know, give as much detail as possible, because that's going to save you getting a bullet in the back of the head, no matter what.
And you don't want that shit. You
No,
just
it's
don't
it's
want.
not fun when you're in the beginning of a raid and then you get shot by your own friend in the back, and it's like, well, shit. I
Man,
can't
when we
wait
load
for
into it, I know when, like, when we load into a lobby, it, like, the chatter just goes off. We're like, where are we? Where are we? Who's this? Who's this? Who's that? Who's that? Like, we're all like talking, because you never know when you'll spawn in and then 10 feet up the road, there's a guy fucking walking and it's not one of you guys. So, like, the first second that we load in, the first thing most of us will do is we're like, okay, what's our extracts? Where are we? Who's who? Lean left or right? What do you have a blue helmet on? Yes. Are you wearing a white mask? Yes. So we can signify each other with key items on our people. And, like, you can also put armbands on, which honestly, I never noticed the armbands. I don't know why we put them on. I never noticed them. I always look at the headgear. Like, Mr. B last night was wearing blue headgear most of the night. I didn't shoot anybody with blue headgear until I signified that that was Mr. B or not. At one point, I was wearing a white gas mask. Well, they knew that I was the only one around them with a white gas mask. So if they knew where I was and they saw somebody else with a white gas mask, they knew it wasn't me, they could shoot them. But if I was around, they would ask before they'd shoot. So it's like, communication is a crucial aspect of Tarkov. I think that's what brings it into that more simulation than just another shooter.
Oh yeah, I mean, visually speaking, you have to know identify targets, your surroundings, and everything. That's what's intricate about Tarkov, is the fact that the the visual aspect what really dictates as a challenge. I mean, given that it's very detailed in its own way, given the buildings, the foliage, but it's the fact that your modeling of your characters, they can also blend in so well in the environment, given a few camouflage pieces of clothing
Yeah.
or gear, you can really blend into the environment, and you pretty much be invisible. And that's what's a challenge about this game is the fact that it's hard to do target acquisition
Yeah.
on people.
You say that, and I instantly thought about yesterday running with Mr. B and his buddy. We went to woods, and by the way, his buddy killed Sturman with 2 shots, which I was very surprised. But Mr. B was like, "Oh, I see you." And I'm like, "Oh, where?" He's like, "I'm right in front of you by the water." And I turned around, I couldn't see him. But then he shifted sideways. He was in front of a tree. I was looking directly at the tree, could not see him. He was wearing mostly green. And because of the fact that he was in the shade of the tree, I couldn't see him at all. Like he blended so well in, he could have shot me in the head and I would have never known where he shot me from. And he was only 15 feet in front of me, 15, 20 feet. Like, he wasn't far away. But because of that shadow and the gear he was wearing and not having any bright blue or anything like that, he didn't stick out like a sore thumb. He was blended right in, like you're saying, like the player to foliage and all that. If you're geared right, dude, you're like it's like wearing a ghillie suit.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like this is why military adopt camouflaging for most gears is because one thing that stands out the most is the human skin, right? So it's,
Yeah.
I mean, if you walk out, when you tell somebody to go 20, 30 feet and you're just dressed in normal clothing, they're gonna spot you right away because this the skin on your face, the skin on your arms, you know, they're very more pronounced to the surrounding. But if you were to wear camouflage clothing, long sleeve, have a probably balaclava or some kind of face piece or something, you're hiding most of your skin and everything, so you're more like blended into your surroundings. That's like the hardest aspect is to actually see a human being out in the foliage.
And it's not like there's any like, I'm sure there's some way you can adjust the settings in the graphics to make it a little bit better for to see people. But then you also ruin the whole simulation aspect of it because you can't add filters to real life. Like it's not like you can just be like, this green's too dull, let me adjust it. Like it doesn't work that way. So I do get like they have post effects and stuff too in the game you can technically add. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of the big guys don't even use those post effects.
It's just there just to I
It's
mean,
there if you really want to use it, but I don't suggest using it because then you don't get used to actual Tarkov.
well, if in hindsight, I mean, really the most of the graphic settings and everything are just there to help, you know, set the mood for the game that you play.
Yeah.
That's the real aspect of most graphic settings. It's not there to help you, it's just there to make it more appealing in a
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm. Make it a little bit easier on the eyes for some stuff.
Yeah, with all this combined, with everything that we just talked about, this is what makes Tarkov unique in its own way that compared to any other game that's tactical sim or
That's it.
tactical
Like when you
FPS.
and like when you were saying like before we started comparing it to other games, I was sitting here like I don't fucking know. I was like I don't know of another game that's like Tarkov. I'll say the only other game that I've seen so far that and these are games that just kind of popped in my head was like Dark and Darker that's coming out probably I think it's coming out at the end of 2023. It's the D&D like style game, but it's a dungeon crawler. It's still roguelite and it's still like got the whole more realism and stuff to it, but it's not a Tarkov game, it's a D&D game, a dungeon crawler. And then other than that, and I know we're kind of taking a weird turn, but like I feel like another game that it popped in my head was Sea of Thieves. I don't know why. When I think about games that like have similar roguelite to Tarkov is Sea of Thieves. Because if your ship breaks, you're fucking screwed. You lose everything in the ship, don't you?
I think the major aspect of if you're comparing it with Sea of Thieves is the fact that you're looting is
Yeah.
is another big thing. Looting is the biggest thing about Tarkov. Because you can loot almost any part of the map, and there's always loot there,
Yeah.
from weapon parts to healing supplies to building supplies. You need all this stuff to make a
And there's
living in
also the
Tarkov.
aspect for Tarkov. There's also the fucking hideout, which
Oh yeah, the hideout,
which
of course.
man, that in itself is a boatload of stress in itself. Because there's so many things you need that are so hard to find that when you do find them, you have a mini panic attack trying to extract. Because you're like, oh God, I'm gonna run into 20 guys now. I have a part I need. This part probably costs you like 100K to buy it. Or, I found one, but my extract's on the other side of the map. Now I gotta travel for like 5 minutes walk time to get there and hope to God I don't run into a sniper scav that shoots me from fucking God only knows where, a player, or just some random scav that you don't see that headshots you randomly, because that happens.
Or let alone just players just ends up walking in your path and they murk you and they just take all your stuff, and now
And now they have the
you
item
gotta
for
start
the
back. Now they have it. Now you gotta start over and find it again. And given that, all the stuff don't spawn in the same spot, it's always randomized every run. That's even the bigger difficulty is
some
trying to find the
stuff, because
stuff you need.
we did find out last night that the machinery key always spawns in room 205 on dorms. So like there's some things that are like no matter what they'll spawn. However, if somebody's went there before you, you're not going to get a key because there's only one. It's not like it reloads in there. It there's one key in that raid. It's in that pocket. If you get to it first, you can have it. But if you don't, you got to run another raid to try and get it. And
And
I've seen us run multiple raids for one quest and not even complete it because again, get shot or the item wasn't there that we needed because somebody else already got to it.
yeah, and it's the fact that most times it might not even spawn there because they might the developers might not set the chance of it to spawn in that same spot, probably a different percentage,
Yeah.
like everything else. And that's the thing. It's like there are things that are probably mostly permanent spawns, like given that there's a lot of quests that you
Yeah.
can do in the game. But the fact that there's a high chance that most of the stuff you have to find in raid that isn't guaranteed to spawn every time.
Yeah. And then there's like, and we'll kind of give our overall opinion on it here in a second. Well, I mean, we kind of been talking about it as we've been going. So, but like with some of the quests, they make it so tricky because you could easily buy the items from a vendor or you could buy it from the black market. However, it tells you that it has to be found in raid, which means you need to not only find it, but you need to extract with it and then give it to the traders as the quest item. You can't just buy it unless you have your hideout leveled up high enough, because then in the hideout, anything crafted in the hideout or made or whatever sort of aspect in that hideout is considered found in raid. So it's like you have ways of crafting it, but to craft it, you need other materials, which means you had to raid for those materials anyways. So it's like there's always those little aspects of everything that really make the game. You have to sit there and think, like, what do I need to do more? Or what do I need to do now? And then also this, like, and I mean, we could go, oh my God, we could keep going on this forever. The stash, like your actual stash of everything, is a blessing and a fucking curse. Because if you're in a situation like I am right now, where my inventory's full, my stash is full, well, now I need to start putting things in other things to be able to make room for it. And that takes so long. Like, I've seen us sit there, like a group of us, and sit there and organize our stash, and it would be like an hour later, and we're not even halfway done.
Given that you're only have a limited amount of space to work with, and you have to delegate what is needed and what to sell, the fact that half the time we're playing Tetris with that thing, it's immaculate on how much effort we put into this.
Yeah, I think you put a lot more time into fixing up the stash than you do playing the game, in my opinion. But at the same time, it's a really cool aspect of it that you do have to be a little, I don't know, more stingy on what you want to keep and what you sell. Make sure that the things that you have a purpose. Like you don't want to stockpile a bunch of single bandages when you can have a two bandage. Like you sell the single bandages, get rid of them, and that's just one example. Like there's a lot of things in there that they don't have a general purpose. They're lootables to sell. You buy them or you find them, you sell them, you make money to buy other things and do other stuff. That's just what they're there for. And then there's other things like weapon parts. You got to decide on whether or not you want to keep that, suppressor or not. That's a you know, oh, that's a $50,000 suppressor. I could use it or I could sell it. It takes up 2 spots. What do I do with it? Like, am I going to use it anytime soon, or am I not? Like, is that a gun that I'm never going to touch? Like, there's things like that that you need to make decisions on.
Even the weapons, like it's very delegated choice of whether you want to use the weapon or not.
Yeah, exactly.
If you use the weapon, you're mostly 50-50 chance that you're going to lose it or so forth. I mean, of course, you can sell the weapon to make money to get a better weapon or better gear that's going to increase your survival chance. But
But again,
it's
there's no real guarantee of survival chance either.
no, even the best players die. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
But
And they die with like a lot of money on them. I've seen people like Pestily and Landmark die with gear that they bought and it cost them like 200 grand to get everything together, and they'd load in and 2 minutes into raid they're dead. That's just mind blowing that you just spent 200 grand in game currency to buy all this gear, and then out of nowhere it's gone. You don't have it no more. You can't get it back unless you insured it. It's gone.
I think the biggest thing with that a hidden understanding is cost to effectiveness, really.
Yeah, that's a
'Cause
big
even
one
if you
too.
have the best gear, if you don't have, the best aim, then you're pretty much guaranteed to lose all that. I mean, a poor person that has the greatest gun skills can definitely outmatch a person with, high tier gear that doesn't have any techniques or high combat experience.
Yeah. And that comes down to how much time you've put into playing games on PC, because again, Tarkov is a PC only game. You have console, you're most likely have never heard of Tarkov, or you've heard of it and you just never got to play it because again, you only have console. And keyboard and mouse with Tarkov is so, I don't know, it makes you respect when you actually get a kill. Because I've seen myself shooting, I've seen people shooting. And again, we were watching Pestily earlier before we did this recording, and he was hip firing an MP5 and getting headshots with it. And I'm like, dude, that's so insane because the recoil is crazy with that gun. The fast firing gun, the recoil is crazy. If you would have aimed down sights, I guarantee you he probably would have died. Like the aiming down sights, because the recoil pattern goes straight up like that, the chances of him of getting the kill walking around a corner like how he did in his stream probably would have died. But he knows how to use his guns because he's played this game so damn much. My reaction would
Yeah.
have been Call of Duty style, aim down sights, walk around the corner, fucking die. That's the steps and exactly how it would have happened. And then I would have got upset because I would have had a kitted gun and I would have had all this stuff. But again, then we just go back and do it again. Like you learn from your mistakes with that game. You really have to fuck up to learn not to do it again.
And even if you get frustrated about it, then again, it's like you have to expect to lose stuff regardless. I mean, you can't win every single gunfight. It's just not possible.
That's the one thing that I struggled with Tarkov at the first 2 wipes. This wipe, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but I play this game a lot differently than I did before. Whereas, like, when I was playing before, if I had a good gun on, I didn't want to push anything. I'd sit in a corner and wait and then die anyways. Now I'm like, fuck it. I got to get better with shooting. I'm going to have to shoot these guys eventually. I'm using iron sights. I'm not forcing myself to use like a scope or a sight. So like there's a lot of things that you do need to evolve as you're playing this game, which is why the learning curve is so steep. Because at first you just want to be a loot horde. You want to keep everything. You want to stockpile everything you can. But then you don't want to use it. You're like, look at all this nice gear I have. I don't want to use this. I want to keep it all. I want to have it so that if I ever decide that I want to be kitted, I will be. But you're never decided that you want to go kitted. You always run with the shitty gear and you always wait. And then by the time you actually get, like, you'll get around to using the good gear, but then you don't have like the good guns, but then you don't have the good armor to go with the good guns. So you're going to die anyways. So just use it. Like, fucking use it, lose it, get more, use it, lose it, so on and so forth. That's how
Yeah.
the big guys learn how to fucking play this game, and that's how you need to take this game. You need to take it as much as it's a roguelite, as much as it's realistic, as much as it's a immersive game. You need to take it with a grain of salt and play it like an arcade style, in my opinion. Like, I feel like if I play it more like an arcade style, I have more fun and I don't stress out over it.
And to wrap all of these details up, and that's basically Tarkov in a nutshell.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the most realistic simulation that needs to be played as an arcade. It's weird, but I like it that way. And I feel like that's why, like this time around when the wipe happened, we had so much more fun so far with it. So far, I say so far because we're only like 3 days in. None of us have gotten to level 15 with the black market yet, which is where you unlock even more shit and more details. But like overall, the experience, we haven't been killing each other left and right. Quality of the game is good. The load-in times are terrible because the servers are just overflowed with people right now. Because I mean, wipe brings back a lot of people that don't play the whole wipe. Because eventually people stop playing it. It's like the hype. The hype is at max capacity right now. I give it a few weeks and the hype will be about 75%, and so on and so forth. Also, during Christmas season, the game goes on special, so a lot of new players are there right now. That's also a factor too. But overall, yeah, I think the game, if you're looking for a realistic shooter like Tarkov, I mean, there's only one to like it. You can't get another game that'll play like Tarkov. Like, I don't know. I feel like if you're on the fence about it, especially like, and you can even, because like the base game, there's a base game for it. There's like 4 tiers to the game.
There's like 4 tiers game, which is your first one being your basic, and your other three like
It's just gear
providing.
upgrades. So like
Yeah,
your first one gets you the game. The second one gets you like your level 2 stash instead of a level 1, which is something in your hideout. Level 3 gets you a level 3 stash, and level 4 gets you a level 4 stash, which is the highest gear. But it also gives you a bunch of gears. So like when I started, I had like RPK, AKs, PP19s, grenades, 500,000 cash. Like, it gives you a shit ton of stuff. So it does reward you for having the higher tier. But if you're looking to get into it, definitely don't do that. Buy the base game, play it for a little bit, enjoy it. Maybe even play it for an entire wipe before you even upgrade. That's what I would do. I was stupid. I bought the base game, and then 2 weeks later I bought the full edition.
Yeah, that. But then again, it's the fact that there is some aspects that you don't have to worry about. I mean, stash grind is a big thing if you have just the first edition of the game.
Oh man, you have like no room whatsoever.
Yeah, you have to be very, very picky. But I mean, of course, most people would just go ahead and spend the $150, get the highest edition, and then most of the grind has been done for you. You know, especially having a level 4 stash, and also you do get equipped with some decent starting gear to get yourself started. Of course, you're guaranteed to lose it since you have, even though you have decent weaponry, but the other stuff is only basic gear to start off with. It's not $1,000 gear that you can just,
Right.
survive like a juggernaut or something.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think in general, like if you don't know what Tarkov is by now, I highly suggest you watch some streams on it. I mean, you could drop by my stream, but I don't play a whole lot of Tarkov. But yeah, I think just to kind of wrap that up, I mean, we already kind of wrapped up the game in general overall. But again, I know this is going to get repetitive, but but Sunday through Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you drop by, you have any questions about anything, honestly, streaming, Tarkov, you want to talk about Tarkov because you heard this podcast, please don't hesitate to ask questions. I'm always open for conversation. I mean, that's why I stream. I want to talk to you. I want to have a conversation with you. I'm sure if Rin's around during the stream, he'll definitely chime in and answer questions too, because Rin's a bucket of knowledge when it comes to this shit. I'm more like, I like to shoot things. Rin likes to get into the details, hence why he's the one that he's the one that kind of steers the conversations a little bit in this. But honestly, it was a good conversation. I really enjoy the wipe so far.
Oh,
I
this wipe's been great. I mean, it's been a treat to be honest since the start, because given that there's a lot of aspects that's been changed over the time that's been improved on,
Yeah.
it's been more enjoyable now.
Yeah, it's definitely been different. Like each wipe has felt better. Like they did change some things. It wasn't last wipe, but the wipe before where they upped the black market to level 20. That kind of pissed off a lot of people. It took a lot longer to get to the black market, but they dropped it back down to 15, which, oh my God, I'm so happy they did because I'm going to grind the shit out of Tarkov tomorrow.
It's the fact that, with the flea market, the grind for XP is more substantial than any, XP gains you ever do in any other arcade games or
Yeah.
shooters. The fact that the more you be successful in raids, the more XP you get. So you're more inclined to outlast and outlive most of your opponents in the game
Yeah.
to get the most out of your XP.
Yeah. And I mean, it again, like, and we'll end it right after this kind of thing. But like he's saying, if you run in to a raid and you don't do shit and you extract, you're gonna take forever to level up, by the way. Like just keep that in mind. You have to shoot people, you have to do looting, you have to do stuff. You can't just go in, grab 2 items, extract. You're gonna get like 300 XP. It takes thousands of XP to like level up. It's not an easy level up to get to 15. So saying level 15, it's not like Call of Duty. This is an in-depth level 15. And again, I'm sure if we really wanted to nitpick Tarkov, we could get into it and talk for like 3-4 hours about every aspect of it. But I feel at that point, I'm gonna put people to sleep. Like, no, but seriously, because like there's so many different things that we didn't even touch bases on. Now I'm thinking about it. But again, if you really like Tarkov, or you're really intrigued by it after hearing us talk about it right now, you should probably check out some of the streams. And again, I'll shout the people out. Landmark, Hesley, those are the guys that in my opinion, are the most knowledgeable people about this game, and they play it a shit ton. So if you have like, you really want to see what Tarkov is like, and you want to know whether or not you should buy it, you should probably check out those guys. Like 100%. My biggest suggestion is watch some streams, watch some videos, get your personal opinion on it, because for everybody it's different. It's not the same thing for everybody. It's always different. And I think if you were to just base it off of what we stated tonight, it's a hard decision to make. I don't think it would be easy to make a decision on buying the game based off of just our conversation. But I hope you guys appreciate the conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys learn something from it, because I mean, there's a lot going on with Tarkov. There's a lot going on that we didn't talk about, but there is a lot that goes on with it. So yeah, I feel like that's all I got in. That's all I got in the tank. You got anything?
Nope. I'm pretty much said all I needed to say.
Alrighty, that sounds like a wrap, my friend.